Welcome to the Rebecca Panapinto Project. Today, I am very excited to host an interesting person named Yevgeny. He is a cybersecurity professional who has had the opportunity to spend more than 40,000 hours providing pre and post sales support as an architect and a principal consultant within various technologies. He has worked with medium to large enterprise level customers ranging in size from 500 to 100,000 employees. Yevgeny is very passionate about cybersecurity technology, vendor relationships, as well as architecture. He believes in connected infrastructure, a significant need for vendor consolidation, and the ability for security control to integrate and share confidential information. Now, outside of his day-to-day taking care of his incredible customers, Yevgeny also hosts the Cyber Inspiration podcast. We talk a lot about all of his learnings from running this show today, so I hope you enjoyed the episode. Welcome to the show today.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
So excited. Been looking forward to this with all the incredible impact you've been making in the industry as well as your podcast. So excited to chat about those items today and hear from you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. I know it took us some time to schedule this, but I'm very, very happy to be here and talk about this stuff and also learn more about the podcast as well.
Yeah, where there's a will, there's a way. And we made it happen with busy schedules. So let's chat about really your experience through the technology industry and now focusing heavily within cyber. You pretty much exclusively consult these days. You have a really good roster of customers and different partners that you engage with, helping them with their security standards. But tell us about that journey because obviously, when you were getting into the space 20 plus years ago, it was a different world. What did it look like then, and what has this progression been to what you're doing with your customers today?
Definitely. And I think my history is a bit different than majority of the people I know. A lot of my friends came to cyber through IT, and I kind of came to cyber through cyber because I was in the Navy and I was doing certain IT tasks, but in the Navy is a bit different than working in the company. I was learning about computers. I did my major in computer science, and in the Navy, I spent a lot of time understanding how operation systems are working, how network are working. But when I finished the Navy, I wasn't really sure what to do because in the Army, it's a bit different than the other world. And I stumbled on Checkpoint, very big firewall company. We know there for a long time. And they were looking for QA people for quality assurance. So I joined the cybersecurity world to be in QA to test firewalls. So, kind of in my mind, I was thinking that everybody outside of Checkpoint in the big world understand debugging, understand how firewalls are working. So, I was working there for 2 years, understanding how firewalls are working myself, also testing them. I had the privilege to test what we now call next generation firewall. During these days, it was more called UTM, Unified Trend Management. But basically, the idea to go beyond layer four, go beyond the network, the usual protocols, and understand how applications are working over variety of protocols like HTTP, FTP, email, and much more. So it was very, very interesting. I moved to Canada from Israel and started to work for a company called Horjovic Group. Horjovic Group now is Sideris, but I was there for 15 years. And if everybody or anybody listened or watched Shark Tank in US, probably familiar with Robert Horjovic. So I joined Horjovic Group, were about 16 people in the company, so quite early. And my mind was set that, okay, I'm going to help the company to deploy checkpoint firewalls. I'm going to work with a variety of different organizations to help them to upgrade, architect, and design. And it was a bit of a shock because I was coming from a manufacturing and I'm coming to work with the consumer world. And I realized my knowledge in the depth of the firewall and what people usually do day by day is different. Not just because they're different, just because the requirements were different. It was very, very interesting to understand how people work. What does it mean? How you make changes? Because when you work for a manufacturer, you can do any changes anytime you want. You're testing. With the consumer world, you cannot just come and change cables. You cannot just come and upgrade firewalls. You need to have write the test plan, explain how you're gonna do this, explain how you're gonna revert it back, what is the risk. You need to represent the change on change management. It's a completely different topic that's very, very important. So it was very interesting to understand, but also quite hard in the same time as well. And during this time, we're talking about 17, 18 years ago, it was much simpler. There was not so many technologies in cyber world. There was no cloud. We kind of solved firewalls, antiviruses, some intrusion prevention systems, email security, and pretty much that's it. Like there was, of course, some small things around it, but right now we can probably name 100 different categories on the endpoint security, network security, cloud security, application security, risk management, vulnerability management, and we could probably go for a long, long time. Also, in the same time, there was less structure we have right now. I could literally email a customer and say, hey, I'll come tomorrow, we'll do XYZ. Good, thumbs up, let's go. Right now, definitely, like even 10 years ago, we need to have an SOW, we need to agree what we're going to do, we need to sign the agreement, we need to have a project management. And at the same time, the sales process was different as well because they don't need to have 15 different signatures. There was no procurement so intensive. There was no RFP. It was quite different. Again, I'm not saying it was easy, but it's just different.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this complexity, it's almost introduced more risk, which is kind of funny and a little bit of like an oxymoron. Like, hey, let's make this more complicated and open up more doors to risk. But the reality is the bad guys are getting smarter, and so that's just how things are going to have to evolve. And I love that you've been part of cyber before it even was this hot topic turn that it is now with Robert Herjavec, who's just such a rock star. You've had a really cool pedigree of all the learnings to get you to this point now. So when it comes to the complexity and the overwhelming opportunity within cyber today, how are you guiding your customers to really be smart about, the top things to focus on to really ensure that they have a good cyber strategy in place, and then allow them to eventually get to all the thrills and the fun little pieces that you can do, but at least making sure that that baseline is set so that they're not going to be on the front page of whatever news article with some kind of major, you know, issue that comes up with breaches and things like that.
I like the way you say baseline, and I'll explain in a second what I mean by this. By working and starting with the firewall, I was the guy that everybody blaming because, like, oh, you guys made a change yesterday. It's you. It's like, no, no, no. It's all the firewall. You guys didn't upgrade because you're in the middle of everything in a way. And when you're in the middle of everything, you learn a lot about everything around you. And if somebody comes to you with a problem and you don't understand from where it is, you start digging. When what you understand very quickly is you need to understand what do you have in your environment. And this is coming back to the baseline. What are you assets you're trying to protect? If we don't know what are we protecting, how are we going to protect it? If I need to have insurance in my house to understand breaking through the windows, if I don't know how many windows I have, how many doors I have, it will be hard to understand what do I need to insure. So this is one of my basic principles when I work with my customers is what are we trying to protect? What is our asset management? Not just computers, it could be devices, it could be switches, it could be other things in the environment, IoT devices as well. And when we understand what we're protecting and the asset we have could be also applications, then we need to understand, okay, what are my crown jewels or business units that are very important to me and why is there crown jewels? And when you talk to different people in the company, each of the person may have different view. The CEO, the CFO probably going to think it's a finance system. The CTO will think is the systems they operate. So you need to understand all this information to come up, okay, we cannot say everything is important because then it's nothing is important, but we need to pick and choose what exactly we're trying to protect. And if these parts are important, how are we going to protect them? One of my ways to maybe quantify this, if this device goes down or not working, does the company can still manufacture, produce, and make money? If not, then it's become important. If we can live without it for a day or two, then it's important, but not so much. For example, if you're running a restaurant, they have a POS system and the internet is down, can you still scan credit cards? Depending on the system. Some of them say yes, Some of them may say no. Some say we can do local scans up to $8,000, $4,000, and then we cannot. And this is the part you need to understand. Some people say it's like a gap assessment. You're understanding the architecture. Also, I'm an architect by trade. When I was working in the Horjoy Group, relatively quickly, I moved from engineering to management and later on to architecture. So I like to understand the flow of the information and the flow of traffic to understand how better to protect the customers or we try to protect. So this is more of my guiding principle is to understand the assets, to understand the flow, understand what we're protecting, have a base, but also understand people. Who are the people that protecting? Because if I have fancy devices, if I have fancy technology, but the operation is not there, the procedures are not there, or people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, then it doesn't matter how cool or sexy it is, it will not do anything.
Well, and then also to your point, like there's the different pieces that need to be protected, but then there's different degrees of protection that they potentially need based on who or what they're going to be a target of. So when it comes to suggesting, providers and partners to help customers like this, when do you think it makes sense to be reliant on native solutions within like your hyperscaler or your email provider versus when does it make sense to start stacking on, the more intricate, more involved SaaS ecosystem to start getting better and better security around applications and other pieces of the business?
I love this question because everybody assumes we always need to buy something externally. And in many cases, we have something native already available to us. Not just this, in some cases, we already have a license from a third party providers we don't use. And it's probably coming to gap analysis and gap assessment internally to understand, okay, what is the license we're entitled to? So let's say native tools could be Office 365, could be Google, could be Amazon, could be Azure, could be many other things to understand, okay, what is the protection of the service we have there natively, what it does, and what are use cases. So by defining use cases before, so first of all, we need to understand business need. Why do we need this? Then we understand, okay, what are we trying to protect? Then we create use cases. Then we can analyze these use cases until against the native application. And if it's meeting the criteria, awesome. If not, we're going back to understand what else we can buy. But in some cases, we may have, okay, my native application is doing 80% of what I need to. My external application, third party, is doing the 20%, but it costs money. So do I willing to jeopardize this 20% and use this money somewhere else? This is one part. Second part, back to the idea of architecture. I'm a big believer of connected infrastructure. So I want the devices or the technology to talk to each other because it's just impossible to know all the dashboards, log into all the devices, and manually connect everything.
It's funny to me that I'll run across customers a lot, which I'm sure is the same with you, where they're like, we need a security assessment. We need XYZ. We need this level of protection. It's like, well, have you even like looked at what's their native and like the little buttons you can push to make sure you're as secure as you can be with what you're already paying for? And more often than not, in a lot of cases, it's like, oh, no, skip that step. We didn't realize that all this was available to us natively, which is just a funny thing that a lot of folks skip over. I don't know why that is. Just good SaaS salespeople are aggressive and they're trying to sell their product. But a lot of times it's, hey, let's start with our native solutions. Make sure you've got the best coverage you can get from there, and then continue to build and stack upon that with what makes sense for the level of security you're needing around this specific use case.
I think it's almost like a feeling that I need to find a new shiny toy because I have to, because everybody else have the new shiny toy. But
Mhm.
maybe the old hammer will work as it worked before. Nothing happened to it, it just continue working.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a baseline that we set with a lot of our customers is just an engagement to initially say, hey, let's get you to the highest level of security you can with this native solution you already have in place. And they're usually very thankful and like, great, you slowed us down. We looked at it, we thought through it, and now we can be more confident in our security strategy around email, hyperscaler, etc. So
Yep.
when it comes to engaging with your clients, what's been maybe the most shocking security concern or breach that you've been pulled into. Maybe it was like a hair on fire situation. You were able to come in and bring some stability and some reassurance and clean up the pieces for your team.
Honestly enough, a lot of my customers right now are more on the VAR and MSSP business. I'm not operating a lot with the end customer as well. And I'm usually
Okay.
come in not to fix the problem during the incident. I'm coming to fix the problem after the incident occur. And now we need to redesign and to re-architect the platforms and understand how it's working. I do have stories, some of them cannot share. Sorry about them. But even talking about the most I'm trying to think about this right now. Nothing comes to mind or what I can share. But there were several stories about some of the interesting phishing attacks and how people were able to get money from one customer to another, to the point to even asking for an MFA key, like a bad guy was asking for an MFA key from that means, even so that means didn't check who they are, including third party. So the third party was able to give an MFA device to bad guys without checking who they are. And it was quite shocking when we understood exactly what happened, how it happened. And even so, the person that was supposed to get, like the original person, didn't get the MFA device, and the bad guys got the MFA device. So it was a bit how even this happened. Like, how was there? What is the validation to understand who you are? And we see this a lot, unfortunately, about human mistakes and come back to procedures and understanding how do we check and who we trust and who we don't trust. And in many cases, majority of these problems can be solved by a phone call, like a validation. Are you actually asking for this right now? Why are you asking for this right now?
Yeah. And well, insider threat more than anything. And with a lot of
Yep.
these companies, it's catches them off guard because they spend all this money, all these different companies to look at different areas of the business, security assessments, have put all these products in place to be this amazing safeguard for their technology from the scary
Yep.
world of hackers and things like that. And they're like, oh wow, we just realized like our key card system isn't great for getting to the office, and somebody can just follow in behind the other person and they're inside the building. It's sometimes people just skip over this insider threat piece that is huge for especially this virtual world that we live in now. So what are
I have
some
a funny,
recommendations
I have
that
a
you're
funny
bringing to
story about
companies?
that.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
From actually came from an episode I was recording. A
Okay.
person was telling me about that he will do this assessment, basically understand the security of people, and he will able to piggyback after the same person 4 years in a row.
Wow.
Through the doors. It's like, okay, interesting.
Yeah. Probably should, yeah, tighten that up. So when you're engaging with customers though, and an insider threat is more the concern than making sure that they're not going to get hacked from their largest competitor. What are some steps that you take folks through to really analyze that and look at those internal processes and systems to make sure that their threat isn't just something simple as an oversight within their internal systems and processes?
So definitely a couple of things that come in mind that are important. We all know about security awareness, and we all do security awareness. And it's a beginning because we need to understand what people can or cannot click. It's probably such a over talk process as well. One thing that I think is important is there should be security awareness, and this is how we do it as well with some of the people on a different level. So depend on your seniority or you what do you do, we'll have a tailored for you security awareness training. To the point that we're talking about C-level people and executives, we will not do it over the Zoom, over the link, over Teams. It will be done face to face to make sure they understand. And very important to rely and give examples from their personal lives. Like, hey, would you do this with your child? Would you do this with your family? What do you think go if you go to a park with your family, would you tell your kids if you get lost what to do? Yes. Okay. If you leave the company for vacation, would you tell everybody, okay, I'm on vacation here and here and here, so don't expect any transactions because I'm not actually doing this work. Because we know, for example, the transaction happening during important meetings, and the bad guys want to say, hey, I need right now to wire the money in this moment because we're trying to close the deal right now. This is one part, but there's many other parts. And the part is coming back to asset management in a way to understand insider threat and to understand how we get hacked or potentially get breached. We need to have information coming from security devices. So I need to understand my security devices asset management. What devices do I have? What kind of logs they're going to generate? Are these logs helping me and they're usable or not? Because in some cases, we see devices overproduce logs, like firewalls or your filtering devices. And in some cases, we see devices that not producing the logs we need. And with collection of this information, collection of these logs, we can put them in systems like SAME, UBA, XDR, and many fancy names we use right now. And then we can create use cases and playbooks to understand problems and abnormalities. So it's a process to get there, but you need to understand what are you collecting and why you're collecting this information.
Yeah, you've had some super interesting personalities and successful people in the RSA community. I'm curious too, as you're getting exposed to like up and coming technology and trends, have there been some really cool products or niches within cyber that you've learned about by being exposed to these different founders and communities?
100%. So, and this is going to be combination of the security architecture and also cyber inspiration, because we had several vendors that came out of stealth with one of the podcasts, or you kind of see a trend like, oh, there's a company that's doing SaaS security. It's like, what's SaaS security? We'll understand the configuration in Zoom, in OneDrive, in SharePoint. Like, okay, this is interesting, new. And then you hear another guy, oh, you're doing very similar. And then suddenly you see them more and more and more, and each of them have a bit different story. So in many cases, you see trends even before they become a big trend. One trend I saw very quickly was DSPM, the DLP over cloud. As part of security architecture, we covered enterprise browser domain. This literally started like 3 years ago, and we've already covered this last year. So it was quite interesting to see. It's not even a mainstream, and we had like 8 or 9 vendors on the show. And for me personally, it's a way to know people in the industry, and in some cases, also helping me with my day-by-day work.
Now, I have one final question for you, and it's around principles. And I'm
Oh my
curious to
God.
hear what is the guiding principle that you've lived by to be successful in business?
This is gonna sound funny in a way, but the guiding principles is fake it until you make it.
Mm.
Uh, With a bit of caveat, because you not just fake it and you stop it there, you have to bring the bar always higher. So it's okay. Basically, you're putting yourself constantly out of the comfort zone and you attacking mountains or you attacking the work that you maybe not perfectly know everything, but then you bring it up and up, up and up, and you're basically moving up to the ladder and always putting new targets and new efforts. That's why I call it fake it until you make it, because some people say, oh, but you cannot always do it. Like, no, no, because you're always doing something else and you bring it up.
Very cool. I like it. With the caveat, it makes perfect sense.
Yes.
You kind of have to do the same thing in skiing and snowboarding, I feel too. Just go for it and figure it out along
We
the
could say it
way and
about
then keep
any
doing so.
sports, I think, in a way. No, you have to push the limit. You have to push the envelope.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, this has been such a joy. Thanks so much for joining us, sharing your story, as well as all the content and podcasts that you're working on, your book, and your conference. I'll make
Thank
sure
you.
to share all the links for people to find you and excited to see you continue to grow and make an impact in the cyber community.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed today.